Welcome, Chris. This is our part two to the heart of it and the episode of forgiveness. And thank you for coming and joining with me again today. And for the next episodes for the rest of the season, we're going to look forward to whatever that may bring us. Now, there was something about the forgiveness that I wanted to, continue the conversation on and, about who we became to survive, which we'll go into. But first of all, I just wanted to let you take the floor and let us know what it is that comes up for you when we talk about forgiveness.
Okay, well, first of all, hello, everybody. Um, well, forgiveness to me has been quite a journey, and the realization that you forever, when the word term forgiveness comes up, you're you're forgiving the person that harmed you, or if that's what you're looking at. And but you're not. You've got to convince yourself you're not forgiving whatever that person did, or whatever that moment did, or whatever that time in life happened. You want to forgive yourself for because you allow yourself to perhaps lay there at night time and cringe about it, think about it, and find it hard to go to sleep because you're making these facial expressions and all this sort of stuff. Um, you're lowering yourself, you're lowering your own vibration to their level. And all the time you're doing that, they're sort of winning because they're trying to, that moment or that situation affected you. And so you're really harming yourself. And so that forgiveness becomes forgive yourself to put yourself into that situation. And so you'll constantly fall back to but I was harmed by that, and don't like that situation and everything, but you're still falling back into that negativity, where you don't want to be. And it's a learning process to do it. Um, But once you start doing that, then a whole lot becomes lifted. Over time, you realize you're not thinking about that. You're not cringing about that. You still not you still don't have to forgive them for doing what they did or the situation or whatever. But you're simply, allowing yourself to be high vibrational by not letting that situation get you down. And when it gets you down, that's when you start thinking, bad things and bad thoughts and that's where you don't want to go because you don't want to be at their level. One of the greatest things I learned was, for an example, we live in a country town, we see people and we see those people and confronted by that all the time. And every time we do, we go back into that, I hated being there, I passed him or whatever like that down the street. But I had this sense of uh, the more you allow yourself to forgive yourself and everything, the more you become accepted to even bypass them in the street and you can say hello, nod and keep walking. I tend to hold like a mirror in front of me or big window in front of me. I can look in their world if I choose to. But they can't come into my world. They can see in my world, but they can't come in. I can quite easily go back into their world if I want to, but obviously I choose not to. Um, and but they can't come into your world. You simply don't allow it. And when you come over time, when you come to this grasp of thinking, it's very easy to go around and walk your head high and be around all these people and everything, because at the end of the day, whatever it was that harmed you, they're still on that level. They're still on that low vibrational act of life that they're leading, and subconsciously or whatever, purposely. But you're no part of it, and becoming no part of it, they can't tempt you into that part of it, and overall becomes a lot better and a lot comfortable. Where I don't think about the people that have harmed me or whatever, and I actually twist it around and purposely go hello and keep walking. And they can think whatever they like to think. But at the end of the day, none of what they did has gotten to me anymore, to the point where I can go right over the other side of that and perhaps make their situation a bit uncomfortable. It's not for that. It's not for those reasons. but it's all about you, and it's all about you, and you're keeping your high vibration and walking your head high, and forgive yourself for putting yourself through that grief, through that, spewing and anxiety and all that.
Good. So, what stood out there was, for me, and in the female voice, giving your power away was significant because that's basically the summary of what you've just said. And, not allowing yourself to fall back into that negativity, which is so easily done by many, and not letting it get you down, because that's when the forgiveness comes in. And the thing I love is that it is all about you. And they're great summaries because there were lots of occasions in my life where it came about people say it's not all about you, and I'm like, well, why not? Why isn't it all about me? Because you're the one that's living this life, and you can choose whether you let things get you down or not.
Yes.
So that term of forgiveness is beautiful. Thank you. So we're going to go into some questions, which is similar about what we did in episode 1, but this is just a little bit more in depth and allowing you to give us even more. So when you go, you look back from now, from this point in time in your life now, how would you describe that person that you were all the way back then? And in my instance, it's about, the person that you learned to be. So how would you describe that person back then?
Well, the person I was back then, if we want to get to specifics, I was different. I was a different person up to the age of 14. From 14 onwards, obviously, we talked about when I started work, I became very different then. I started becoming quite different. I got out of my shell, very, very much so. And, I hardened up. I became stronger. I became the person I didn't know I wanted to be. And so growing, like I said in the past, growing up with sisters, around that environment, no brothers, no father, I was completely different. You could say that I sort of had purposely two personalities because I had to be one person at home in the home environment. But when I got out to school and I chose to look for rat bag mates on because they were completely different to me, and obviously, and it was a different then, but still, up until 14 onwards, 14 at the age of 14 when I left school and started work, like I might have said in the past, it was a change of the course of my history. When I look back on it and started work, and I completely changed. Then, as far as a person became, I became um, a lot tougher mentally, a lot hardened. Because I didn't have any male influence growing up to suppress anything. I was suppressed myself because my mother didn't want to, have any reputation harming her or whatever. So that led me on a good straight. But the personality was was still way back then very understanding, very um, compassionate, empathy. But I had a front. And when you're young, the front you have is I'm tough and everything. And because I wasn't in the earlier days, that was empathized. I guess in a way I was I was trying to prove to myself and prove to others, that despite of that, I've become this person. But I always stuck with good morals and the good upbringing that my mother gave me, right from wrong and all that sort of stuff. But those days you become, hardened and a bit of a show off, and that sort of led your personality. And I was able to do lots of things, surfing and bike riding, motorbike riding, and no one was there to hold me down, sort of thing. And uh, so yeah, it was. I don't look back and regret any life or personality that I might have had or anything. I think I was guided by spirit, or or whatever from word go. I've always thought something like that, you know. I was a great believer in God because we knew no different, knew no better, and you know, we go to church all the time, and that became an understanding of the power of belief. And the power of belief isn't just a power of believing something above; it's a power of believing in yourself as well. And that,
Great. Good, good, good. It's good. So the so what we're looking at, the world, what the world required of you back then is, a person giving, coming that summary back to you that you didn't know that you wanted to be. It sort of all of a sudden happened, and it felt like there was purposely two people in your identity. It was, of course, a course in your history that created quite big change quite rapidly. You became tougher mentally. There was a part of you that hardened. There's part of you that suppressed yourself, still knowing with your morals that you had, good understanding and compassionate, although there was this front, okay, that you had to be tough, tough with good morals. I love it. Hardened, but we also had the opportunity to show off, but you still had that innate power of self-belief
yes.
from growing up. So, can I ask, what did being strong mean to you back then?
Oh, it meant a lot. You know, we're looking back in the days where um, every male was sort of, I guess, hardened. There was no cotton wool. You know, there's no mollycoddling with the kids that around nowadays. You know, we'll send outside and we come home and the street lights got turned on and all this sort of stuff. There was, you know, our parents wrote about us, but on the same token, our parents wouldn't have wanted us to hang around home all day and everything. So it was a halfway meet, you know, and what they don't know don't hurt them. You know, we grew up with that, and I might be falling away from the actual question here. What was it again? Sorry.
What did being strong mean to you back then?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, and especially for me, you know, growing up with sisters, I naturally presumed that role of being the man of the house. So I'd mow the lawns, you know, and I'd do this. So I was the strong one, and I would have done anything to protect my mother, whether it be emotionally or physically or anything like that, as well as my sisters. Um, because I was the only male, and back then it was really emphasised that the male role is the most important role. You know, back then the mothers were getting married and staying home and raising the kids and doing the housework, and while the old man was out working. In the country back in those days, it was either you stayed at school and did training to eventually go on and do a apprenticeship, or working on the boats or working on the farm, whether it be hay baling or farm work or fishing. So it was important back then days to be, you know, tough and hardened and stuff like that. And so that's, I hope I've
good.
answered.
Yes, it is. It's basically saying, um, to be strong back then, and you were conditioned by society, which was playing the role of the man, which is the most important role in the household at that stage. And to do that, you had to be tough and hardened and remain to be the strong one, or even seen as the strong one, and the man about the house or the man of the house. It was hardened. There was no cotton wool. But it's still a stage that was quite meaningful in your life as well. And what I want to know is, was there ever a moment where you ever remember thinking, I just need to handle this myself? Because if you actually had to show emotion, if showing emotion wasn't even felt like it was an option. So was there ever that moment?
No, you never thought about I've got to handle this myself. You're back in the mind frame of whinging and bitching about the situation that you got put in, or you allowed yourself to get put in because you didn't understand the value of choices and the real meaning of what happens when you make your own choices. And I was, you know, I was quite gobsmacked and during those times and yeah, I'm really sorry. I keep forgetting the question and I go on
Okay. So it's the need to handle the self. Was there ever a moment where you remember thinking that you had to handle this
all the
yourself? And
time.
you're saying Oh, there
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yep.
All the time I had to handle it because there was this emphasis of um, it didn't need to be said by the male growing up society that was older than you. Didn't need to be said that. Come on, you got to be a man.
Yeah.
It was naturally imprinted that we've got to be this way. We've got to do this way, and we most of us accepted um, well, we didn't know any different, didn't know any better, so we just accepted life as it was, and we became a lot tougher and harder as the generation is now, and but more, a lot more. We've become a lot more resilient.
Yeah, so and when with the phrase, I just need to handle it myself, it's kind of like, well, I can take care of this and fix it. I can do it. I can be the person that holds that strength in the male role and looked upon to,
Yeah,
you'll be
there's
able
never any question about it. We just knew we had to do it.
yeah.
You know.
So, and so many men learn that as well. The strength as self-containment. I can fix this, I can do it, I can, even if they take on too much. And so that they are not necessarily going through life with support and connection because they can only rely on the self that's there. And basically, they're learning what we call survival intelligence. So sometimes with that, there's what we call an internal cost. So what I'd like to know is I know that when you became a father, this is probably one of those shifting moments that we talked about earlier. Is like, what started to shift and becoming that father and getting the custody of your child was one of those moments. So, was there any other time that or was that the most major time that you felt the shift start to happen when you didn't begin to feel that you were, um, that your way that you were coping wasn't working anymore?
Um, no, because every shift I've made it work.
Okay.
So there's been no major shift, no major moment in my life where I can think back and well, that changed the course of my history or my future, whatever, that I've regretted. Um, I guess the I don't know, but maybe the advantages I have on that is to be able to think like that is because I've been so independent, independent in the sense of being the only male, not having a father to depressed or tell me what I could or couldn't do, or what which is different to what your mum tells you, Um,
So you were given a situation where, it was not so much that you weren't coping anymore and you had to change. It was more like your life changed and then you had to find ways to then cope with the situation that's there in front of you.
yeah, some of those times might have dragged on a bit before I got into that realm. For example, there was a time when I wanted to quit fishing, and I did for a time, and I was unemployment benefits, and that was a time where life was pretty easy, life was pretty slack. Did lots of surfing and motorbike riding, and living in cars or you know riding a motorbike around camping or whatever like that. Um, there's never um, there's never a time when I had to think back and there was never a time when I had to think back and really grasp, oh, what am I doing? Oh God, this is, I should be getting out of this. But that time when I was unemployed, I eventually just snapped out of it. I ended up going, like, fell into a situation where I could go to Melbourne and straight away work, and that's what I did.
I like that falling into situations. And so you created the situation where you stopped fishing, obviously, and then you created the next situation, which was I'm no longer want to do this. I'm hopping on to the next timeline, so to speak. So go.
There was times when I regretted starting to do things,
Oh yeah.
but then was really, really glad that I did it. One of those times when I was 17, started hitchhiking around Australia with a 15-year-old friend. During that time, I regretted it, but I look back and think that was the best thing I could have ever have done.
That's that
So,
hindsight. And yeah, like you do go through those times. where there's this feeling underneath, and your feeling was regret as you were doing it, but then realization that it was your greatest learning.
Yeah, yeah, and there was benefit from it, which gives you, and what does that do? That gives you the thought of any other situation you get involved like that. Well, there's going to be a good outcome out of this. I'll just keep doing it. Put up with it. You learn, take the good for the bad. Take the bad for the good.
Yeah. You've got to have both sides of the
Yeah,
story. And when you talk about that part of the situation, then, there were situations that you went into, and that we had that regret that went in there. That regret can also be a mask as well. So we go in with a regret mask, and that mask can get heavy. And then we realize, oh, that was a mask I was putting on. I actually grew from this. I actually became a better person, or I found and learned more stuff from it. And
and you can realize that during that process instead of at the end. You realize, oh, well, it's not so hard after all. This is all right. This is going to be great.
And when we go in with that regret and that first one, and it changes as we go through it, it's because we're usually trying to protect ourselves from something, because it's like, oh, maybe this is not a safe situation. Maybe this is not a place I can go into. Maybe this is not good for my direction. You may not be thinking those things in that, but regret brings all that up.
Yeah, yeah. You do. You may have a bit of worry, but you keep going through because your subconscious mind is all of a sudden coming out into your conscious mind. Hey, look, come on, aren't you aware of this, that, and the other? But your conscious mind's going, yeah, but that's all right. We'll go through it. We'll just put up with it. I can do this.
Yeah. And that comes from that strength, toughening up, being hard, all those things or gifts that you've actually learned. So when we look at self-forgiveness as a returning to home, so a self-forgiveness is returning back to your body or returning back to your heart, as we call this episode, the heart of it, returning back to you, your true self. What was, let's see if you can get this question. What was the first moment that you allowed yourself to soften towards yourself even slightly?
Going back to um, when I got custody of my son, there was like that. That was like 8 months, a year after I'd realised that this is the course I was going to take. So when there was a time I took a month off fishing to look after my son, and that happened during that process.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
that
softening of,
very, yeah, because it was different coming home and just to see him then for a day or for a weekend, then going back out again for another 2 weeks. I was home 24/7, and yeah, my dear old mother would say that old Christopher, he loves kids. He won't admit it,
so
and that came out. That came out, and I guess I wasn't aware of that myself until it happened.
yeah. So that softening started to happen, but at the same time you were allowing that to happen, and you could see that because it goes from, all that stuff that you had to become, the toughen out and the fishing and doing at such a young age, and you had to do certain things to cope. And then look at the person that you were, and sometimes blame can come back, into that going, this is not who you are. What are you doing? And then all of a sudden there's this child, which is allowing you to go back to being that person that was brought up in
Yeah,
that caring and the belief and
yeah.
the understanding that you had. And it pushed you back into understanding you coming home to you. Yeah.
Well, I guess so. When you're in that situation, you want your son to be as hard as you and stuff like this, but the mistakes that were made to you, how how it went about for you to have to realize that is different when you pass that on. It's a lot more softer. It's a
Mhm.
lot more lenient. They don't know any different. They still might think it's hard, but in comparison, um, you know,
It's vastly different. And
vastly different.
yeah, this brings me to the, forgiveness isn't about saying that the past was okay. It's about recognizing we did what we did with the resources that we had at the time.
Yes, and that helps you. That helps you forgive. That gives you a better understanding of you allowing yourself to forgive. You don't. Maybe it would have been good to mention it back then that you don't just forgive like that. Oh, I've got to forgive, so therefore I'm going to forgive. You fall back into what you were saying, but you realise all that, and it helps you even learn to forgive more.
Yeah, and that's a life path. These parts come up of ourselves, and we like, oh, what are we doing with that? We're always doing that self-forgiveness, if not daily, maybe weekly, monthly, or even yearly. But that, version of yourself that you were for a period of time back then until the sun came into your life, that person that you were then, would you feel that they judged life at all?
Sorry, what was that?
So that person that you were back then,
Yes.
before the sun came into your life, that person then, did that person used to judge? Did you judge yourself? Did you judge the world around you?
Um, Not so much judged myself. Maybe I allowed those around me for me to maybe like society would judge you, people would judge you. It was very easy for people back in those days to say, "Oh, you love yourself," because you might be doing something that might show that.
Yep.
You can't give that away. Um, yeah, I'm struggling with trying to remember the questions, Michelle. I'm really sorry because I'm getting onto a rampant way of thinking and trying to hold myself up so I don't ramble on.
Oh, you're all good. It's about judgment. So you may have been judged by others or society in that time, and sometimes we stopped ourselves by acting in a certain way to not be judged.
Yeah, I don't think judgment was a thing back then. I
Yep.
think it was just, "Are you an idiot?" or "What are you doing?" Or because we're coming through a society of um, you know learning how to impress, learning how to show ourselves and stuff.
Yep.
But you're also ridiculed over it. You're not ridiculed over it nowadays. You can't judge anybody nowadays. I stopped wearing um, a brand of jeans because I got ridiculed from it.
Yeah, and that's also being judged, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we say it in different ways. So moving on, what changes when we come back to the heart. So this is my questioning as what changes when we do come back to the heart. So how does your life feel different now that you're, not carrying any of that ridicule or any internal punishment? Obviously, you can't be like that, Chris. You've got to do it this way, kind of thing.
Yeah, oh, fantastic. I mean, I let go of all that many, many, many years ago. 30 years ago, I started letting go of all of that, and I just go around doing what I love doing, and uh, I've got even now. There's a certain society that you go through through your whole life. You're going to be judged. You're going to be this and going to be that. But I completely ignore it, and I just go for what I do comes out of my own self-belief and self-conscious without any influences around me saying whether I could or couldn't. And I've proved that many times by teaching myself things, by doing things that other people wouldn't do. I'm doing at the moment. I'm doing quite a few things that people, wow, shake their head over, and but I'm not the only one that does it. There's lots of us out there that are like this, but Um, now if something doesn't work, well, I just learn by it and do it properly. Do it again. Don't just stop.
And this is how you relate differently to your life now, and whether it be partner, family, friends, or the work that not work, but the hobbies that you do seems to be coming from curiosity.
Um, if I'm doing something I haven't done before, then I I guess you could call it as in, well, he's curious about that now. He wants to do it, but it's not a case. If I have to learn to do something, it's because I want to do something or create something or produce something where part of that process is learning how to do part of it, and I'll just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can and then that can relate back into your friendships and relationships that you have of how you're approaching your learning and how you're doing life.
My approach to relationships and everything is completely different approach to that because I'm not always, I was very self, introvert, but I've become that versatile now where I'll just talk to anybody, get along with anybody. I've got a massive circle of friends. They're not a lot of people in those circle of friends, but I soon realised, many years ago that I can't have a party invite all my friends because lo and behold, some of those friends don't get along with the other friends. I didn't know that. So I attribute to um, I attribute to my upbringing and how I grew up and what I chose to do in life to be able to be like that. You know, I can put myself in any situation and be okay. You know,
I love
around
that.
any group of people and be okay. They mightn't be comfortable with me or anything, purely because they're egotistical or whatever like this. They even look at me or whatever. I don't know, but I'll go in with the view of I'll just happily talk to anybody. Everybody's equal.
So if you could offer one sentence to someone who's listening who feels like they can't actually forgive themselves yet, what would you say?
To somebody that can't forgive themselves yet, um, are you forgiving yourself? What if, I need specifics. Are they forgiving themselves for allowing themselves to be um, turning the situation over in their head all the time, where it gets them down? They've got to transfer those thoughts into a thought of, wow, it's good to be alive. It's great to be happy. It's great to be totally not affected by that. I haven't seen that situation. I haven't seen that person. Um, why should I be worried about when I do see that person? Confront it. Confront it like you would confront a nightmare. Um, remember that. Remember what I've said about the you hold a mirror in front of you. It's so powerful. It mightn't come across that way saying it, but when you're in that situation, it's so powerful. It's so easy to transcribe from one to the other. And this side's the gosh. To this side's is a
Peaceful. It sounds very peaceful. And it is very peaceful. And this is about that self-forgiveness is not necessarily just a moment. It's a constant returning to the self and reflection, as you're saying, putting a mirror up in there and going, well, uh, there's this person or this situation, what is it that I can or can't do about it? Is there any point, am I going to be learning from it? Is there any point
yes.
to
And
it even?
the only thing you can do about it is do whatever makes you happy about it. And if that means just forgetting about it, whatever, you know, if it means looking upon their life as being, well, what a sad life they have, so be it. But a great life you have.
That's
It's
right.
you go back to the thing of a person that's really depressed. I can't do nothing. Or I can't. No one's accepting me, and everything like this. The depression folds on itself, where you basically tell that person, okay, get a piece of paper and write down on that piece of paper all the great things that you've done in your life. You write down about four or five, then others will start coming. Others will start coming that you've forgotten about, that you totally forgotten
Mm.
about. And after a while, oh wow. Then beside it, write all the bad things that you feel as though you've done, not the bad things that people think that you've done. Because people can think that you've done something wrong, but you've done it for a reason, and that reason is the right reason. They just haven't realised it yet.
Yeah.
And it's one of the great things to make people have, oh wow. And then you can say, you see that depression, that anxiety, how it controlled that. it kept folding and working controlled that until you are able to come up with a blockage of all the good things that you've done and brings it back to a more of a level situation. And if it comes back to a level situation, then it can even go higher.
And that's a little bit of rewiring in the brain. So they are definitely very good things to look at, which also brings me to we come back to ourselves again and again. So you're talking about that depression can fold over on itself and the
Yeah.
layering of the messaging that you're telling yourself, on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, what does that self-talk look like? So we keep coming back to ourselves until we feel safe enough in
Do
our
we feel
heart
safe enough and happy enough and
to
great
stay
enough?
open.
And yeah, because that's
So
where you want to be.
it's exactly where you want to be, and it is a wonderful place to live to live from. So everything that you became for a reason, not because you were weak or wrong or bad, but because you adapted to survive all these situations, but also learn from them. And so um, there's not necessarily just the nothing to forgive or to forgive. It's about understanding the man that you had to be for that period of time through all those processes that you've gone through and allowing yourself to become the man that you now get to be.
Yeah, the term had to be and get to be um, were so strong, back in the day. Um, Now life's full of acceptances. None of that exists now, unless it's to your own personal self, you know. But back in the day, yeah, that was so emphasized. You're going to be this or you're going to be that. If you can't lift the hay bale, or you're soft, you're pansy.
So now you get to become the man you now
Now,
get to be.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so what I wanted to do is basically end on that note. And I wanted to thank you for being here, with us and
You're
with your
welcome. Happy to be
family
here.
and with yourself as well. So for everyone listening. And now we will come through to episode 2, which we will go into next week. And we hope that you can join with us then. But for now, I'm going to say arrivederci and thank you very much, Chris.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.